Hello, I'm Game Retainer, and in this video I've got some more tips and tricks for 7 days to die. I did make a video recently covering 50 tips, but there are plenty more things that are worth going over. So with that said, let's dive straight in. First, let's look at office chairs. These can be broken down in 3 different ways. If you break down an office chair with an axe, you'll get a little bit of iron and either 1 or 2 leather. If you pick up an office chair and scrap it, then you'll get 6 leather. And if you use a salvaging tool to break it down, then you'll get some iron, some leather, and at least 1 mechanical part. Most players know that you have a small chance of finding a pistol inside a toilet, but you also have a small chance of finding a hunting knife inside one as well. If you're lucky enough to find a hunting knife early on, then use it. It's one of the best early game weapons you can find. The next tip is one that I covered in a recent video, but you don't actually need a workbench to craft iron tools. Provided you've read enough of the relevant magazine, then you can craft things like iron pickaxes and wrenches in your inventory. Many of the POIs in 7 Days to Die have hidden loot. I'm not talking about mouldy backpacks underneath floorboards, I'm talking about secret stashes. These boxes are usually hidden away, but if you do come across one, then they're definitely worth opening. While a lot does depend on your loot stage, more often than not you will find something nice inside these containers. If you're playing with biome progression turned on, then you now get environmental protection as long as you're inside a POI. Initially, when biome progression made its way to 7 Days to Die, going inside a building wouldn't keep you safe from the elements. But now you can hide safely inside a POI without needing to equip biome gear or craft any buffs. Moving on, mark locations on your map. This is a pretty obvious one, but it's very easy to forget. If you pass a good store or an interesting POI that you'd like to come back and explore, then just save the location on your map. You can always delete the marker later, and it just helps you keep track of things. Also, if you place down a quick waypoint, then you can remove it by hitting this icon here. For a very long time, it was possible to smash open cop cars without spawning any enemies. If you broke down a cop car until it had very little HP left, you could ram it with a vehicle to open it without spawning any zombies. But now that's been patched, so if you do decide to cheese your way into a police car, you will end up with a nasty surprise. Next is to stick a point into one of the armor skills. It doesn't really matter what your playstyle is, chances are you'll want to craft some decent armor. Putting a point inside any of the armor skills increases your chances of finding armored up magazines. Speaking of skill points, consider reading the descriptions. Most skill points are tied to a magazine set. For example, if you put a point into deep cuts, then you are more likely to find knife parts and knife guy magazines inside loot containers. This next one is pretty niche, but it can come in handy, especially if you want a little bit of extra clay. For some reason, when you craft topsoil and dig it up, you'll actually get more clay back than it cost to make it in the first place. While you don't get a lot of extra clay, it can come in useful in certain situations. Keeping your storage base separate from your horde base is a good way to safeguard your loot. Not only that, but if you do all of your cooking and smelting at your storage base, then you're not going to get bugged by screamers as often when you're working on your horde base. If you are worried about screamers appearing at your storage/crafting base, then try and do all of your cooking and smelting during the day when you're out scavenging and completing missions. Most actions in the game will generate heat, but cooking and smelting generates quite a lot of heat, meaning that you'll get screamers fairly often. But if you do all of your cooking and smelting during the day while you're not at your base, then you won't need to worry about screamers appearing all that often. Also, there are a couple of different types of screamers. I'm not on about the special variations, I'm on about 2 specific types of screamers. There are spawn screamers, and then there are POI screamers. A spawn screamer can scream and summon more zombies, but screamers that are part of a POI can't actually spawn zombies. They can still scream, but no zombies will appear. There aren't a lot of POI screamers in the game, but Bell Lake and Construction First Garage are two of the locations where you can find one of these POI screamers. Investing points in the Infiltrator gives you the ability to pick up mines. Rank 1 lets you pick up tin landmines. Rank 2 gives you the ability to pick up cooking pot landmines. Rank 3 allows you to pick up hubcap landmines. And at rank 4 you can pick up air filter landmines. Not only is this good for making some of the more difficult military outposts a little bit safer, but mines do sell for a reasonable amount of dukes. You can stack cargo mods inside your drone. A tier 6 drone can hold up to 4 cargo mods. Each cargo mod gives you 8 additional storage slots. So if you fill a tier 6 drone up with cargo mods, you'll have a total of 48 storage slots. The next tip is to fill all mod slots on items, even if the mod doesn't seem that useful. Applying any mod to a weapon or tool will boost its damage output and block damage. There is one exception to this, and that is the Silencer mod. The Silencer will reduce your damage output, but once you've read all of the urban combat books, silencers won't actually negatively impact your weapons. If you're struggling to find mechanical parts early on, then there are a couple of things you can do. The easiest one would be to loot a Mopower store. The shelves inside these have a pretty good chance of containing at least a couple of mechanical parts. Also, if you're fortunate enough to come across an engine early on, then you can scrap it down for 30 mechanical parts. Speaking of scrapping items, some items sell for more once scrapped. For example, without any skills or buffs, a radiator will sell for 40 dukes. However, if you scrap it down to brass first, then it sells for considerably more. All POIs have zombie trigger points. While this is pretty well known, you can use this to your advantage. More often than not, these trigger points are located in doorways. So, before entering a room, if you crouch next to a doorway, you might be able to see a couple of sleeping zombies. You can then get a couple of stealth shots in to make clearing the room a little bit easier. Moving on, mining generates quite a lot of heat. To reduce the amount of heat you generate from mining, crouch. It doesn't make sense, but it works. You will still generate some heat, but you'll be able to mine for longer before screamers start spawning. Also, if you are using an auger, then you will produce considerably less heat if you just hold the button in to mine. Stopping and starting the auger generates way more heat than if you just keep it running constantly. It really doesn't make any sense, but there we go. Once you have a wrench, there are a few things that you can break down to get some extra forged steel. These include gas station pumps, transformers, street lights, chandeliers, and broken vending machines. Speaking of vending machines, POIs that have a working vending machine on site make for great bases. There are plenty of locations that have vending machines, and while there's no guarantee that a vending machine will be working, if you do find a functional one inside a POI, then it can come in very handy. Vending machines are restocked daily. If you have one in your base, then you'll have a steady supply of food or drink, provided you have the dukes for it. Parkour level 2 is great for evading zombies and jumping up onto hard to reach areas. However, if you decide to get Parkour level 4, then you'll jump so high that you'll start bumping your head on ceilings. This can be pretty annoying, especially in the more difficult POIs that have lots of zombies. It's pretty hard to kill zombies if you're bumping your head every time you jump. Vitamins will stop you from getting dysentery. This can be very helpful if you're hungry and thirsty and all you have on hand is some old sham sandwiches and some murky water. While they aren't very nutritious, it's definitely better than suffering the negative effects that come with being hungry and thirsty. If you put a point in lockpicking, you'll have a better chance of finding forge ahead magazines. However, once you reach 15 out of 75, you will no longer get that extra chance of finding forge ahead magazines. To keep the extra chance of finding Forge Ahead magazines, stop reading the magazines once you've read a total of 14 out of 75. Instead, store those magazines inside a chest. It won't take you very long to completely max out that magazine set. It's also worth noting that advanced engineering increases your chances of finding Forge Ahead magazines. That said, this skill impacts multiple books, diluting the chances of finding extra Forge Ahead magazines. You will still get a little extra chance, but it's not as good as lockpicking. When cooking and crafting, the most efficient fuel source to use is coal. One gas can will give you 2 seconds of fuel. One oil shale gives you 5 seconds. A piece of wood gives you 50 seconds, and one piece of coal will give you 1 minute and 40 seconds of cooking time. If you want to get a farm set up early, but don't want to spend ages gathering resources, then there are a couple of POIs that have plenty of farm plot blocks on site to help you get set up. Some of the ones with the most are Higashi Pharmaceutical and the Crypts. Now, Higashi Pharmaceutical has a little over 130 usable farm plot blocks. However, it is a tier 5 POI, so it's almost impossible to clear out early on. On the other hand, the Crypts has more than 30 farm plot blocks, and it is just a tier 2 POI, so it's pretty easy to take over. It also works well as a base, so it's a bit of a 2-in-1. Just taking a quick pause to show off the new Marauder set. This is one of the DLC cosmetic sets, and I really like it. The reason I'm mentioning it is because I'm currently doing a giveaway on this particular set, so if you want to get involved, then put the word join in any comment down below and I'll add your name to a wheel that I'll spin in an upcoming video, and it could be yours. Now let's get back to the tips. Moving on, follow the lights. Most POIs in the game have lights that guide you through. This is very handy when it comes to clearing some of the bigger maze-like POIs. Also, every now and then, you'll come across some lights that seemingly lead you to a dead end. Some lights actually indicate that there's some hidden loot for you to grab. Take the old creepy church for example. There's a torch on the wall, away from the main loot. This wall is actually hollow, and there's some hidden loot on the other side. The next tip is a pretty obvious one, but it's something that I often forget to do. If you want to get a lay of the land, then build a little tower. You don't really want to waste time heading in one direction if there isn't anything good there. Building a little tower gives you a pretty good look over the nearby area, helping you to decide which direction you should go in. Finishing off, if you are in desperate need of brass and you happen to have lots of spare dukes, you can actually smelt down dukes into brass. Now, it's not very efficient, but if you quite literally have money to burn, then go for it. But that's it for this one. I hope you found this video useful. If there are any other tips and tricks that you can think of, then please feel free to share them in the comment section. Also, if there are any videos that you'd like me to make, then let me know down there as well. Thanks as always for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.